In this video, I'm going to share 5 things you need to get right to ensure that you craft a strong research proposal that has the best chance of first-time approval. If you're currently working on a proposal for a dissertation, a thesis, or any other sort of formal academic research project, this one is for you. So let's do it. Hey, Derek here from Grad Coach. If it's your first time here, the Grad Coach channel is where we discuss all things research related so that you can approach your project with confidence and competence. This particular video is based on an extract from our popular online course, Research Proposal Bootcamp. In the course, we walk you through the process of developing an A-grade proposal step by step with lots of plain language explanations and examples and anecdotes. If it's your first time writing a research proposal, you definitely want to check that out. And as a special thank you for watching this video, we've got a little discount for you. You can find the link in the description. So with that out of the way, let's jump into the 5 proposal writing essentials. All right, so essential number 1 is that you need to first understand your university's requirements and restrictions before you start developing your proposal. This might sound pretty obvious, but all too often we see students going through all of the effort of finding a unique and valuable topic and drafting a really meaty proposal. And then they find out that they've missed some critical information regarding the university's requirements and all of their efforts were in vain. Now, every university is different, but they all have some sort of requirements or expectations regarding what students can and can't research. For example, there could be restrictions regarding the topic area that can be researched. There could be restrictions regarding the data sources that you're allowed to use, for example, primary or secondary data. There could be requirements regarding the methodology that you use, for example, qualitative, quantitative, or mixed methods-based research. And most notably, there can be varying expectations regarding the topic originality. In other words, does your topic need to be super original? Does it need to be completely novel? Or can it be just a sort of a different take on something that's already been fairly well researched? So the key takeaway here is that you need to thoroughly read through any briefing documents provided by your university. Also, you definitely want to try to take a look at past dissertations and theses from your program to get a feel for what the norms are in your institution and within your department. Long story short, make sure that you understand the rules of the game before you start playing. All right, on to essential number 2, which is you need to have a clearly articulated research problem before you start drawing up your research proposal. As we've explained many times on this channel, all good research starts with a good research problem. Without a problem, you don't really have a clear justification for your study or for your research. So it's essential that you have tremendous clarity regarding the specific research problem that you're wanting to address before you start drafting your proposal. If you're not completely familiar with the concept of a research problem, you can check out our explainer video covering exactly that. From the research problem, the research gap emerges, and from the research gap, your research aims and objectives and research questions emerge. These then, of course, guide your entire dissertation or thesis from start to finish. Again, if any of this sounds unfamiliar, we've got explainer videos covering these topics, and you can find those links in the description. Needless to say, all of this starts with the literature. In other words, you have to spend time reading the existing literature to understand the current state of knowledge. You can't skip this all-important step. It's just too often that we see students making the mistake of trying to write up a research proposal without having a clear understanding of the current state of the literature, which is just a recipe for disaster. You've got to take the time to understand what's already been done before you can propose within your proposal doing something new. On to essential number 3, which is you need to clearly communicate the feasibility of your research. One of the key concerns that reviewers or assessors have when deciding whether to approve or reject a research proposal is the practicality, in other words, the feasibility of the proposed research, given the student's unique resources, which are usually pretty limited. Needless to say, you can have a brilliant research topic that's super original and valuable, But if there's any question mark about whether that project is something that you can realistically pull off, you're going to run into issues when it comes to getting your proposal accepted. What does this mean? Well, first, you need to make sure that the research topic you've chosen and the methodology you're planning to use is 100% safe in terms of feasibility. In other words, you need to be super certain that you can actually pull this off. And of greatest importance here is the data collection and analysis aspect. In other words, will you be able to get access to the data you need? And will you be able to analyze it? Second to that, assuming that you're 100% confident that you can pull this research off, you need to clearly communicate that in your research proposal. To do this, you need to proactively think about all of the concerns that the reviewer or the supervisor, or whoever's going to approve your proposal, might have. And you want to make sure that you really clearly address these in your proposal. Remember, the proposal is a one-way communication. You get one shot per submission at least to make your case. And there's generally no sort of Q&A or opportunity for the market to get clarity on anything that you're speaking about. So you need to make it really clear what you'll be doing, what the potential risks are in your project, and how you'll manage those risks to ensure that your study goes smoothly and according to plan. If you have the word count available, it's always a good idea to present a project plan, ideally using something like a Gantt chart. You can also consider presenting a risk register, which is where you detail all of the potential risks as well as their likelihoods and their impact. And you'd also detail your mitigation and response actions. By doing this, you will show the assessor or the marker or the reviewer that you've really thought through all of the practicalities of your proposed project. If you want to learn more about project plans and risk registers and all of that, we cover these things in detail in our proposal writing course. And we also provide templates that you can use. As I mentioned, you can get access to a special discount offer for that course using the link in the description. All right, on to essential number 4, which is you need to pay really close attention to your university's ethics requirements or policies. This one is a biggie, and it can often be a real dream crusher for students with lofty research ideas. If there's one thing that will sink your research proposal faster than anything else, it is non-compliance with your university's research ethics policy. I've got to stress that this is really a non-negotiable. So don't waste your time thinking that you can convince your institution otherwise. If your proposed research runs against any aspects of your university's ethics policies, it is definitely a no-go. Now, the ethics requirements for dissertations or theses or research projects can and certainly do vary depending on a few factors, including the field of study, the institution or university that you're with, and the country that you're operating in. So I can't give you a comprehensive list of things that you need to do or ethics policies that you need to adhere to, but some of the common requirements that you should be aware of include things like informed consent, in other words, having or getting permission from your study's participants and allowing them to opt out at any point in time. Another one is privacy and confidentiality, in other words, making sure that you securely manage the data and respect people's privacy. And on the flip side, if your research involves animals as opposed to people, you'll need to explain how you'll ensure ethical treatment of those animals, how you'll reduce harm, how you'll reduce distress, and so on. One more thing to keep in mind is that certain types of research may be acceptable from an ethics perspective, but will require additional levels of approval. For example, if you're planning to study any sort of vulnerable population, for example, children, the elderly, people with mental conditions, etc., this may be allowed in principle by your university, but will require additional ethical scrutiny, and that's typically from a review board or a committee. Now, situations like this aren't proposal killers, but they can delay your project and create a much more rigid environment. So you need to carefully consider whether that works for you, given the timeline that you have to work with. All right, on to the final essential, proposal writing essential, and that is that you need to write critically and concisely. This final item is admittedly a little bit more generic than the others, but it's just as important to the success of your research proposal. Of the two, in other words, writing critically and writing concisely, the first is arguably the more important one. All too often, students fall short in terms of critical writing and end up writing in a really descriptive manner instead. We've got a detailed blog post and video explaining the difference between these two different types of writing, and you can find that link in the description. So I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about that here, but the simplest way to distinguish between these two types of writing is that descriptive writing focuses on the what, while analytical writing focuses on the so what. In other words, what's the impact and relevance of each point that you're describing to the bigger issue at hand. In the case of a research proposal, the core task at hand is to convince the reader that your planned research deserves a chance. To do this, you need to show the reviewer that your research will, amongst other things, be original and valuable and practical. So when you're writing, you need to keep this core objective front of mind and write with purpose. In other words, you need to take every opportunity to link what you're writing about to that core purpose of the proposal, which is to convince the reader that your study is original, valuable, and practical. The second aspect in relation to writing is to write concisely. All too often, students just ramble on and use far more word count than is necessary. Part of the problem here is that their writing is just too descriptive, in other words, not critical enough per the previous point. And part of the issue is just a lack of editing. The key word here is editing. In other words, you don't need to write the most concise, perfect version possible on your first try. If anything, we'd encourage you to just kind of thought vomit as much as you can onto your paper in the initial stages of writing. Once you've got everything down on paper, then you can get down to editing and trimming it all down so that it's nice and neat. You really need to get comfortable with this process of iteration and revision with everything that you write. Don't try to write the perfect first draft. Just get your thoughts down onto paper and then you can edit them out. This is really a habit that will serve you well beyond your proposal into your actual dissertation or thesis or bigger project. All right, so that brings us to the end of this video. If you want to learn more about how to craft a top-notch research proposal, be sure to check out our online course for a comprehensive step-by-step guide. As I mentioned, we've got a special discount offer to say thanks to you for watching this video, and you can find the link in the description. Alternatively, if you'd like to get hands-on help developing your proposal, be sure to check out our private coaching service where we hold your hand through the research journey step by step. You can learn more about that and book a free initial consultation over at gradcoach.com. So until next time, good luck.